Coming up on the Tech Show this week.
Oh, we've got a new 12-speed gravel group set.
There's speculation of a new Trek/Enduro bike.
And I speak to special guest Si Turner from Cotic Bikes. Okay, Neil, it's that age-old debate. Is it carbon, aluminium, steel, or even tie? Don't say anything just yet, because I've got a special guest to argue this with. Meet Si Turner from Cotic Bikes. Okay, Si, big question to start with. Is steel real, and what the heck does that even mean?
I think steel's real. I mean, there's some over there. I don't even know where that term came from, but it seems to have stuck. But,
it sounds catchy.
Yeah, it does sound catchy. It's nice and rhymes, and it means people can be annoying about it on the internet. But
that is an important factor when choosing a bike.
Yeah, absolutely. But
so why do you like it then?
Why do I like it? I like steel because I've always loved the look of it. Like, because I've been doing this long enough that most bikes were steel when I first started, so I loved that. But then, because of that, I started riding some of the early aluminium bikes and things like that, and I never really liked them. So one of the main reasons is steel has a bit of flex to it, a bit of give when you're riding along the trail. I sort of say it breathes with the trail. So it's got this gorgeous kind of tactile feel, and I've never found another material that does it. So that's one of the main reasons I use it.
Yeah, so I've actually ridden one of your bikes, as you know, and I must say, shouldering it through the Alps is a lot easier than a big carbon bike. But that's just one,
that's another. There's all these little things, aren't there? Yeah.
So why did you focus in on steel for Cotic Bikes?
So the very first bike that I wanted to build was a steel hardtail. Like, we've been going 20 years now, so this was back in 2002-03, and I was coming out of downhill racing, and I wanted a steel hardtail that was modern, not horrible 90s thing.
I don't know what you're implying.
But again, I wanted that steel kind of feel to it, and then it just sort of. That always was a thread running through the bikes. So even though our first full suspension bike was aluminium, it never really fit in the range. And then we really hit our stride when we did the first Rocket, which was steel. And we just found that like all of the durability, the clean lines, the toughness, the repairability, the ride feel, all of that, just anything from a gravel bike up to an enduro bike, and even now with Nico's project, a downhill bike, there's definitely those performance advantages. So whilst it'll never be the lightest thing, I don't think that's ultimately the only way you can measure performance of a bike, and I think all of those other things are really important. So that's why I use steel.
Well, you haven't focused completely on steel. You have worked with some of the other materials in the past, haven't you?
Yeah.
So is there any pros and cons to all of those three materials that you've used?
Okay,
maybe from a manufacturing point of view, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, steel's one of the harder things to make something out of. Carbon's expensive, but not especially complex. It's like there's a lot of labour in it, and you've got to spend a lot of money on moulds, but it's not that hard. Whereas making a bike out of steel, certainly if you want to keep it a good weight, you're always working against the fact that if you end up using big pieces like big forged pieces like you'd see in an aluminium frame, they end up quite heavy, and so you're always kind of fighting that a little bit. But like I say, for us there are advantages, so we want to do it like that. Aluminium is like a really nice material to make a bike out of. It's relatively cheap and abundant. You can form it really easily. You can make a nice sort of light frame out of it, and you can do a lot of cool things with with CNC parts and stuff like that. And to the point where even the swing arm on our full suspension bikes is aluminium for exactly that reason. It's got a great big forged swing arm head, and to do that in steel would be either really fiddly or really heavy. So yeah, and titanium you build very much like steel. It just costs a huge amount of money.
It does, yeah. Well, while we're on the subject of aluminium, I have noticed almost a resurgence in aluminium, and I hate to say it's a comeback because it never went away.
Yeah.
But as we discussed earlier, Commencal are really gone headstrong into aluminium, and they're releasing these bikes as premium. And usually aluminium's always been reserved for sort of budget. So what do you think think about this sort of aluminium coming back, being a premium material again?
Well, I think you can build any bike to be premium in any material if you take it far enough and you put the engineering into it and you put the performance into it. But Conant's a really interesting brand to mention, because one of the reasons I know why they don't use carbon is the same reason we don't use carbon, is because we don't believe that it's environmentally a very good thing to do. Trek did this amazing piece of work on a sustainability report a couple of years ago, and they said that their carbon bikes emitted 3 times as much carbon dioxide as their aluminium bikes, and steel's even lower than that. Reynolds, our tube supplier, did a piece of work that showed that. So Conant are using that from an environmental point of view, and I salute them for that. But I think the thing that they're really getting is when you do carbon, the molds are enormously expensive. So you're kind of committed to that design for at least 3 years, even if you're pretty big volume. Whereas Conant have come out with like a refinement on their bikes almost every year for like the last 5 years, and then they've done this big step recently. And you've seen with their downhill bikes, I mean, they're prototyping, they're changing stuff every week, and you can do that with aluminium because you just come, the engineers come up with a new idea, they give it to the prototype shop and they just build it. They've not got to cut a mold or go to a frame vendor. They can just literally do it and try it.
Yeah.
And find out whether it works or not, and then get better than the competition. And I think they've proven that it's like, that Conant downhill bike particularly is like one of the bikes to have at the moment. So
yeah, and constantly learning and constantly developing means it's just constantly improving as a bike. So
yeah.
I can see that, and we've seen that with Nico making his Frameworks bike. He's a perfect example in that he's brought out perhaps 5 versions of downhill bikes in the last year or just over a year now.
Yeah.
And well, speaking of which, you have actually been involved with Nico and the latest iteration of his downhill bike. So how did that come about? That's really fun. Nico's really interesting because he's just all about going faster. So whilst I've got a preference for steel, and there's, I've got certain emotional reasons why I use it as well as like sort of sound engineering ones, I'm invested in it, where he's completely agnostic. If a wooden bike made him faster, he would build it out of wood. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So he's but what they were having last year is I saw him at Worlds in Leger last year, and I know him through a friend of a friend, and they were still struggling with cracking the aluminium ones. So he was interested to get a steel one, partly for durability, but also just to see whether the steel was real. Was it was it actually a thing that could translate into downhill? So we did some prototypes for him with our UK frame builder who makes our drop link bike, makes the Rocket Max and the Flare Max. Fiveland, they built those for us. The testing went real well, but Nico was injured at the time, so there was good feedback. And by which time, like you say, he'd not stood still, and there was now a new version of the bike. So when he wanted some more steel front ends, I got together with Nico and Dan Roberts, who's the other engineer on the project, and we put together a version 2 steel front end. So there were only ever 2 version 1s. Yeah. That was it. Then they're done. Don't look back.
Move on.
And then there's now 3 version 2s, and one of which was the raw one that he raced at Worlds.
Yeah.
I've not spoken to Nico for a couple of weeks, so I don't know which way it's going in terms of whether he's going to go aluminium or steel for any putative production or what, but it's been an awesome thing to be a part of.
And he's currently riding a bike that's got a steel front end, a carbon back end, aluminium linkages, titanium cranks.
No, I was the tie chainring, wasn't it? No, he's got 5 dev like tie chainring, and I think we worked out that the fork lowers were magnesium. It was like material bingo for the bike.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
No problem, thanks for having me.
Talking to us about materials. But let's get back to the show.
Can I say something now?
Go on then.
Well, all the bikes I ride are pretty much carbon fibre. However, I've got a massive soft spot for titanium hardtails particularly. I'm not interested in anything else.
Spendy, Neil.
Yeah.
Spendy.
I don't know why, they're just kind of timeless, and I've always wanted one. I've never had one day maybe. I rode a Moots in Iceland. It helped. I rode it in one of the most beautiful places ever, but I loved it. It was cool.
It's one of the materials I haven't had much time with. But I want to know what these guys think. I want to know what material you go for. Do you care? Why do you like one? Why do you hate the other? Let us know. Join the debate down in the comments below.
So it sounds like there's a new Trek Slash. Well, it looks like it to us because Isaac has been out at Ludenville for the Enduro World Cup and everything else. And he's seen Harriet Harnden riding this bike. We've seen pictures of it. So brand new Trek Slash by the looks of it. It's got a high pivot as well. So it's got the idler. Kind of, we've seen Loris Vergier's session running that setup as well. So interesting to see how this tech goes from downhill down to an enduro bike. So I guess we'll be seeing that soon.
Yeah, well, I guess watch this space. Meanwhile, in the world of gravel, because we're obviously thin on news this week, so we're talking about gravel now, but Shimano have released 12-speed, finally, which will appeal to all you mountain bike gravelers out there. And they're dropping a full mechanical 12-speed, which will now be running with cassettes that go on Hyperglide now instead of HG. So we are getting that nice, tiny 10-tooth cog. And they're doing this sort of division of 3 different styles of their group set. So they've got what they call, it's snappy, it's unbeatable, undroppable, and unstoppable. So one iteration you can have a 1x for gravel racing, the other you can have a 2x setup for just all-round gravel riding, and then you have this 1x mullet setup, which is effectively drop bar shifters that can now pair with a mountain bike derailleur, which means 12 speed, but it also means you can now have a 10 to 51 tooth cassette, which is massive in comparison to previously, which was only 11 to 42. So I'm on board with that. That sounds good. They've also brought out some carbon wheels as well, obviously rocking that new Hyperglide instead of the HG Freehub body. But they will be running 25mm internal width, which means 32 to 50mm fat tires, which us mountain bikers love on our gravel bikes.
I actually run the previous GRX Di2 11 speed on my gravel bike, a 2x as well, and it is crazy how good this stuff shifts. Like it's so clean. It makes me think, why don't our mountain bike gears? I guess it's just the jumps and the gears are so tight that it's just so smooth.
I think that's, yeah, there is a lot to be said for less gears. But mentioning Di2, actually, they haven't mentioned anything about 12-speed Di2 yet, but I'll be surprised if it's not pending. So also in the news, I've got to say, have you seen what I'm wearing today, Neil?
I've seen it, your sprocket.
I sprocket, I get this stupid hair out of the way. New t-shirts have just dropped. This is in white and black and a hoodie. I think you've got the hoodie.
I have. It's very jazzy.
But yeah, big news.
Thanks for your support, if you buy.
Okay, it's the moment they've all been waiting for. It's quiz time, Neil.
Yeah.
So, seeing as we had a special guest on, I thought I'd give him a little Cotic theme here. So, where did Cotic bikes get their name from?
Ooh, don't know that one. Question number 2, what's so special about Reynolds 853 steel?
And stay tuned later in the show for the answers. So I've picked some bike caves today because I know you're still working on yours or dreaming about it anyway.
I am getting inspiration from Edward's ones. This is in Olofström, Sweden. He's a Dutchman living in Sweden. But what I like is the sort of storage on the walls for the little knickknacks. That's what I've got, boxes and boxes of little knickknacks. I need sort of, sorting out and putting in something.
You know you're an adult when you're like oogling storage and being excited about it, don't you?
Well, I've got more space, hopefully, than I have at the moment, so I'm more about storage.
I quite like some of the features he's put, like the little handlebars on the wall. I don't know if that's a trophy or whether he's just put something together, but like
bins
a little ball
as well.
horns.
I've got my kitchen bins get demoted to garage bins, but I particularly appreciate the picture of the boxer dogs. They're my favourite dogs.
Nice, and he seems to have a really cool trophy that's like made out of a crankset. Love that.
Nice.
And then, last but not least, just a single photo here. This is from Ramon in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, who has basically turned his living room into a bike cave with his nice hanging bike up there.
Why not? Although my bike's never clean enough to be, I wouldn't want it in my...
Can you imagine if that was above your sofa, just dripping mud on you? But yeah, proof that any point or any corner of your home can be a bike cave. So don't forget to send us in if you have something kicking around your house.
Into the comments from the Malverns Retro Tech last week, and Floyd Blanson says about, I'm cheaper, Moots YBB, that's the bike I rode. YB is a Softail, and Turner Stringer are the only two I've never managed to find used for a price I'd buy it for. I don't remember.
Well, yeah, but they're both Thai, so as we've just learned today, they're pretty spendy, aren't they?
But last forever, so
yeah,
no problem.
So the Alias said, the full Thai Zizang was my halo bike when I was a kid. I would love one with modern Geo, and the OG Thai Hey Hey was also up there. Yeah, totally agree. And he's mentioned a Ritchie as well, Team Edition, again with the Thai.
Is that because I'm old? People, I think that's the thing. Everyone who likes retro, me. I think it was a Zhizang. So my friend there was.
A Zhizang.
Cy Richardson says it perfectly. I can't remember how he pronounced it.
A Zhizang.
But it was the fanciest of GTs, and my friend had one because it was his dad's bike, but it was very cool. It had a U-brake on the rear, which was useless though, because you couldn't even put V-brakes on it because the bosses were in the wrong spot. Anyway, retro stuff. Matthew Gregory says, I'd have one of the Sun Chippy Dino rigs. Yes. My friend had one of those as well. It was the dream machine.
Yeah.
Or one of the Cannondales that Missy Jove et al. Rode at the time. Yeah,
I think she made everything cool,
I like your style. Yeah,
and finally, Megal Siegel, the Trek Y33, original black carbon frame, but was otherworldly and got me into mountain biking in the first place. I can't believe how futuristic it looked. Do you remember that?
I think that's the flying, looked like the guitar with a URT. I thought that was futuristic, but not my cup of tea.
Otherworldly.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Thanks for those comments. Okay, the moment they've all been waiting for now. What's
Quiz
the
answers. Go on then. So where did Cotic bikes get their name from?
Basically, Cy Turner was called Cy Cotic at uni, but it was kind of like an ironic name because he was the least craziest person on a bike ever. And he just rolled with it because CT was too close to GT, as in Gary Turner bikes, and also Turner bikes already existed. So there you have it.
Do Turner bikes still exist? That's the question. I don't know.
As new, I don't know. Wouldn't like to say, actually.
And what is so special about Reynolds 953 steel?
853.
853. It's not that special, I can't remember.
No. Basically, it's one of the few metals or materials that will actually get harder when you weld it, because it effectively air hardens. So.
Amazing.
Anyway, right, it's time to say goodbye to these lovely people, but what are we looking forward to this week?
On that note, I'm actually digging into this. So obviously, carbon fibre is everywhere, but downhill racers are often choosing aluminium frames and components like bars and rims particularly. So I'm going to look into that. I'm doing a video this week about that.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, coming up on the Tech Show, I have hand polished some cranks. So I don't know if they're here actually. Someone's nicked it. But these were black. I'm going to show you how to de-anodize them and make them all shiny and polished. And also, it is factory visit time to Industry 9. I cannot wait to show you this machine shop. So you have to tune in on Sunday to see how that amazing Industry 9 Hydra Hub gets made.
Cool, nice one.
But for now, goodbye.
Yeah.